makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just do another time. You know what? Whoa, time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic. Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle as always. Kyle, how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, having the double day of full football, Saturday and Sunday. And we had the fights Saturday night after the games. So it was great. It was a fun-filled, sports-filled weekend for sure.
Did you watch the fights?
I did. Yeah. I don't miss a card. I don't miss a pay-per-view, I should say. And I try to watch most of the fight nights as long as they have a good headliner. But yeah, 296. It was pretty good. It was honestly kind of underwhelming for what we thought it was going to be. The prelims were probably better than the main card. The main card opened up with a knockout from Josh Emmett on a guy named Bryce Mitchell, who's actually they're both like pretty good fighters in their division, featherweight. They're like not elite, but like right there. You know what I mean? Maybe to put it in basketball terms, maybe like Sacramento Kings, maybe a little below that, but they're right there. They're quasi contenders, I guess you could say. Not quite all the makings, but Josh Emmett knocked Bryce Mitchell out like to the point where he had a seizure, and it looked like we might have the first fatality. Like it was actually kind of scary. When he hit him, it sounded like a baseball bat, honestly. Like that's the craziest knockout I've seen. And I mean, you see some pretty crazy knockouts, and that one was honestly frightening. That was probably the highlight of the night. The championship matchup to end the night, actually, the Leon Edwards, Colby Covington matchup. That was kind of underwhelming. Colby didn't show up at all. Leon won pretty easily, but nothing really exciting in that fight. The co-main, the flyweight championship, that was pretty good. Pantoja dominated. But overall, underwhelming main card. Overall, the card altogether was pretty good, but the main card was underwhelming. But not bad. Seen worse cards. Seen better cards.
Yeah, of course. I haven't been able to watch live events just because I've been very busy, but there's been so much battle rap going on. I'm waiting and very excited for it to drop. I know there was an event last weekend that was really big. 2 weekends ago was Battle Rap Bonanza weekend. There was a big events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and some other events that were not as big that were that weekend as well. So a lot of stuff coming down to the wire for the end of the season race for Cody and Wody, which is basically their MVPs of the season or the battle rap year. So yeah, very interested to see exactly what happened there. I kept up with it on Twitter and then heard snippets here and there, but I didn't watch any full battles for my correlation for UFC and battle rap because I seem to make that correlation like they're the same thing, but they're not. But your following of UFC and my following of battle rap, because I don't mind the UFC and I would watch it if it's on, and I feel like you would watch a battle if it was on because you like obviously hip hop, you like rap, so
sure,
kind of the correlation there, but not really the same thing.
We did weirdly around the same time start getting interested in each around the same time,
COVID
roughly.
time,
even before, shit. I was thinking about it. It was about 2020. I probably started a little bit before COVID, but starting actually following, in COVID times. It seemed like you were watching battle rap maybe a little earlier than that, but in general, in the same mix.
I was getting into it because there was a big event in 2020, February of 2020. That was the first event I watched live, and that was the first big event that I watched. I was getting into it like that winter into spring, and then COVID was when I really just got down to the history because I was like, what else am I going to watch? And I was like, oh, there's this battle rap stuff that I can catch up on. All right, cool. And so I did.
I remember watching one event
with
you out around that time. It might have even been that February event, but I remember nothing of that event at all. Like I couldn't tell you one battle rapper that was in the event. Couldn't remember a thing about it, but I mean, hey, that was almost 4 years ago now.
Man. The one that The one that we watched, I think, because I think I was the one. The main event was Geechee Gotti versus New Jersey Twerk, and it was pretty much for like the new face of battle rap. Essentially, it was.
Sounds familiar.
You have Tay Rock, who is your kind of. You have your Tay Rock, who is kind of your LeBron of like URL. Like he really has just been the face of URL for years now, probably a decade. And then you have obviously there's other platforms. You have other faces on other platforms, but then it was really Twerk and Geechee Gotti were the two rising stars, and they went head to head in Twerk. Terrible performance. Geechee did what he did, and then he's been on. Honestly, a kind of a legendary run ever since. He hasn't had a legendary 3 or 4 years, so that was that time. But it was a fun event. I liked the event. I remember the event, of course, because I was more into it than you. Not that you didn't like it, but so it was a fun event. But.
For sure. Yeah, no, I don't remember a thing about it. I remember watching the entire thing, but no, I couldn't tell you much about it. But I mean, going from battle rap to the battles we had this weekend in the NFL. Do you want to start Saturday? Do you want to go over yesterday's games? Is there a particular game you're itching to talk about?
Actually, the game that I'm itching to talk about the most was the last one we saw. Ravens, almost the Chargers. That was before the bye.
Might as well be the
Ravens and Jags. The Ravens and Jags. I love the performance from Lamar. Like, that was the one thing that I took away from that game. Like, he didn't do his stats aren't dazzling. It's just like the way he moves in the pocket, the way he runs with the ball. It's just he's just so electric, and the thing that makes him so unique and so talented, so up the upper echelon is the fact that he's nothing like we've ever seen. The way he kind of can move. I mean, Michael, he's Michael Vick, but it's like obviously different. Vick did it in a different way than he did, but that kind of still elusivity in the pocket to get out of the pocket, the way he runs with the ball. So I just love watching Lamar. It was more fun than the score suggests for me personally. And then it was a very bizarre game on the Jaguars side. They got to the red zone, or they got inside Ravens territory all 5 drives in the first half and didn't have a point, missed 2 field goals. The play before the half, which was terrible. I'm even fine with him not spiking it there. But if you're not going to spike it, you have to go to the end zone. So that's terrible, regardless of it. If you're going to do that, then you might as well spike it. Then there was just a couple weird. I think one of them ended in that no hands fumble where he just decided to like let go of the ball. It was not a good game from the Jags, and it didn't look good from the Jags' perspective. Lamar was my biggest takeaway from that whole thing, but I'll let you go on.
Yeah, it was an okay game. I mean, going into that game, you're figuring, okay, like this is a measuring stick game, definitely for the Jaguars, but certainly also for the Ravens. That's why you have that matchup on Sunday Night Football. The Jaguars didn't even show up. They need a new OC, and I know resident Jaguars fan Brandon Petty, he'd say the exact same thing. Like, I thought the play calling was atrocious.
I was hoping to get him on just for that.
I was hoping to. Yeah.
I think he's get him on to talk Jags soon.
He's usually busy around this time. I think if we recorded later, he would be available. So we'll get him on. We'll get him on sooner or later for sure. Maybe before the postseason. But I mean, I was disappointed in the Jags, and I've always been the opposite of the whole Jags bandwagon, if you want to call it that. I mean, they had some hype going into the season, which I get it. They have all the talent in the world. They're still young, but to me, they're a more explosive version of last year's team, which was very feast or famine. You just never really, they're very trick or treat, right? You could get a 60-yard bomb. You could get that play you got from Trevor Lawrence that you mentioned where he fumbled when he didn't even get touched. He's just going to the ground and just loses the ball. I thought it was a pathetic showing by them. Yeah, exactly. Like a ghost got him. Just like, I don't know if you saw this, but did you see Jordan Poole last night when he did the crossover and fell?
I didn't see that. So I was thinking you were talking about his like down like with 30 seconds left or whatever, his chuck up 3 that he tried to throw. No, I didn't actually see that Jordan Poole play.
I believe it. Well, he was in the open court.
They were down 4, and he shot like a fadeaway 26-footer off glass. It was one of the worst shots you'll see.
Sounds
but
on
brand. What did he do?
Jordan Poole plays the NBA like I play fucking just pickup ball. So that's completely on brand for Jordan Poole. So, he yesterday, I think it was yesterday. If not, it was Saturday. He was just dribbling like at the top of the key, like looks like he was in transition and kind of was pulling up to like do a stop move and just like fell violently, like fell hard on the ground. And then someone today I seen, they put a ghost of Draymond Green throwing a punch in it and digitally posed it. It was a good edit. It was a great edit, actually. It was hilarious. I should actually send it to you.
That's hilarious.
I think I seen it on IG, so yeah, I'll send it to you. But that's what the fucking Trevor Lawrence fall reminded me of, and I was disappointed as a football fan. Honest to God, like I was expecting a great game. I was expecting points, and Lamar was good, but I didn't come away like blown away with the Ravens. Like Lamar does what Lamar does. You call it electric. I don't really think he's as electric as he was even 2 or 3 years ago. To me, he's like, when I watch him, he reminds me, like I would call him Sweet Feet. I know that nickname was for James White. He called himself that when he was in New England, but like, that's all I can think of with Lamar. Cause he's just like, he's fast, but he's not top end fast. I mean, he is, but it doesn't seem like he's moving that fast when he's like scrambling in the pocket or evading tackles. Like he's just kind of honestly just like ducking and dodging his way through. And it just seems easy to him. He's almost like gliding. Like he reminds me more of a Walter Payton when he's running through traffic more so than like a Vic or a speedster. He's so unique. And like you said, the stats don't back it up necessarily. He doesn't have explosive stats. But he plays great. I mean, I just really don't know what to make of the Ravens after that game. Yeah, they won, but it was more like the Jags just literally put it on a silver platter for them. They did nothing to win that game at all. They moved the ball pretty well against the Ravens and still couldn't come up with anything in the red zone. That play at the end of the first half, was atrocious. I couldn't believe that mistake. That's like the second time they've done that this year too. You got free points from the 5-yard line. Throw it all the way out of the end zone. Give a guy a chance with a fade, but don't throw it short of the sticks. Like that's just ridiculous. So I was disappointed in the Jags. I had them winning. I mean, I just thought it was the way the landscape has been working in the NFL, but I thought they'd at least put up a fight. I thought that was pretty pathetic. So, I mean, look, if that was a pay-per-view event like the UFC event, I'd want my money back because that should have been a much better game. That should have been a much better game, and the Jags looked pretty foolish. But hey, I think next year's the year for them. I was never taking them seriously anyway, but I certainly thought we would get a better effort from them last night, without a doubt. So, yeah, disappointed, but whatever. And again, I don't feel like I learned much about the Ravens at all.
Oh, I didn't feel like I learned per se much about the Ravens at all, but I just had fun watching Lamar itself. The game, because you're right, the game overall,
it's garbage.
C, maybe C. Like I'm getting that generous grade, but Lamar himself, watching him was fun. So that was my biggest takeaway, and I wanted to talk about like just Lamar Jackson. You're right. The one thing that's always gotten me about Lamar is it just feels like there's always another, like, and sometimes he turns it on and it's cool, but like it just always feels like there's a little bit more. Like I want to, like he just always he never gets a chance to get in the true open field where you get to see like the Tyreek Hill burners on him. Not that he has Tyreek Hill burners, because
he's got burners,
one of one, but he's got like, if Tyreek Hill's a 100, he's a 95. He's got those type of burners, but you never get to see him like hit the hole in an open field. I want to see it. I just want to see like a 70-yard run from him, open field, no one there, and just watch him outrun people like Odell on slants when he was in his like peak prime. And the way he runs always does get me too, like as you were saying, kind of just like it's like he knows what he can, like he just uses just enough just to get away and not peak. Like Isaiah Pacheco or like us, we'll remember Damian Harris. They run with such aggression that, every ounce of energy that they possibly could use to run the ball, they're using. It's like Lamar uses 90%, but his 90% is still faster than 99% of
I'd say
defense,
75%.
and more elusive than 99%. At times it does feel like 75%.
Like back when they were doing design.
The only run was like his last run of the game. Like you felt that, or like his run against the Bengals a few years back, where he had like the spin move, the juke, like that run. That's where you're like, oh, that's Lamar and That's Action Jackson.
We haven't seen that one in a while. Some of them
like, okay. No, we haven't. We haven't.
If he's preserving it, like more power to him. Like I get it. I mean, the last 2 years he hasn't even reached the postseason because of injury. So I get it. That's why I hope we do once these games get tight. I mean, like the Niners game on Christmas, and then the playoff games that hopefully he will be a part of. Hopefully we do get to see some of the explosion. Either way, no, you're right. He's completely fun to watch, especially with that scramble that he threw up to Likely near the end of the game. That was the play of the game, obviously. No, you can't. There's nothing to hate Lamar about, and he's improved so much from the pocket. Like he's improved every year immensely from the pocket. I still watching him. I just have just more to be desired. I cannot still, even with this win, all the way buy into the Ravens yet. I'm almost there, but there's something. I don't want to say there's something missing, but I don't know. There's something I don't quite trust about them yet. I'm interested for this test with the Niners on Christmas Day. I can't wait.
I was about to just whatever your questions are, they will be answered on Monday. Even if they're answered negatively, even if you're like, okay, they're not what I think. Like, I don't think there's I don't feel like there's a way. Well, for the most part, I just don't feel like there's a way that they can come out of the 49ers game without there's always a way, but for me mentally, they're coming out of that game with me believing like, okay, they really can get to the Super Bowl and can compete with anybody. They are the true favorites. Or it's like, this might still not be the year for them. We'll have to wait and see kind of thing, which will answer kind of one of my questions on like my belief going into the playoffs. This game, I have a lot of faith in it. And also I think it's going to be interesting for on the side talk, the MVP talk will be interested in this game because you got 3 MVP candidates going. The leading one's not the actual leader, but yeah.
What you mean?
We'll talk about that more on Thursday, probably.
What you mean?
Oh, I mean that Christian McCaffrey, to me, overtook Tyreek Hill. Because I said last week when you asked that if I had to give the award out, I would have given it to Tyreek Hill. I thought Dak was going to win it at that point. Obviously, what transpired, we'll get into Dak here momentarily. But with Tyreek Hill not playing, Christian McCaffrey having such a great game between them, the battle is so close. I would have Christian McCaffrey edged over Tyreek Hill for my personal MVP. But then obviously you in the betting favorites, you've got Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson who are in your top 3. So you got 3 true MVP candidates there, in my opinion.
Sure. I mean, I cannot wait for the game, obviously. I mean, we went through it last week between the Christmas NBA games and then the 2 NFL games during the day, not meaning much, but leading up to that game, it's going to be great. I cannot wait. And that'll be in the middle of Philly and Miami, which will itself be a really good game. Measuring stick game in the NBA. The Ravens, though, I'm not taking too much away from next game just because I feel like the Niners at this point are, I want to say so much better, but a fair amount better than every single team in the league. I think they'd be favorite on any field at least by 3 points versus any team in the league. Any single team, really. Name one team and they're favored by 3 on their field, on their own field, on a neutral field, wherever. But with the Ravens, they still got 2 challenging games, I believe, after. I mean, they got the Steelers in week 18. They have someone else after the Niners that's kind of challenging.
They play the Dolphins, which is
Dolphins.
Kind of like almost de facto for the 1 seed.
Thought it was the Dolphins. Okay, yeah. So me more so it's how they end. I'm not going to take too much away from the Ravens game unless, the Niners game, unless they stomp them. If that happened to be an end result, then yeah, by all means, okay, we got to take this Ravens team serious to the max degree. But, I believe that'll at least be a close game. We'll see how it ends. I mean, it's Niners at home, but, I'm going to take more from how they just close down the stretch in general, more so than that game itself. Because as we know, Steelers, Ravens, no matter the quarterbacks, no matter the coaches, it's always Harbaugh and Tomlin, but no matter who the players are, it's always going to be a battle. It's always going to be a weird game. Just look at the game earlier in the season. And that Dolphins game, which I'm assuming is Ravens at home. Ravens should win that game. I mean, I would take Ravens in that game home or away. But so, I mean, like I said, just these 3-4 games down the stretch, how they end, that matters more to me, more so than that Niners game. But hey, either way, that's a potential Super Bowl matchup. Cannot wait for it. And we will be glued to the TV for sure.
Yes, we will. So let's go to Dallas. Or, well, technically, let's go to Buffalo. But Dallas versus Buffalo in a game that I thought Dallas was going to win. I thought they should have been favored in the game. That doesn't change the fact that they got absolutely blown out. And they got blown out in the way you would have least expected it on visually, on paper. Like, it makes more sense schematically because of where you're going to get Dallas is going to be in the run game comparatively to the pass game. Like, when the 49ers beat them, they ran all over them. When the Cardinals beat them, they ran all over them. So, like, if you're going to beat Dallas, the run game is where you're going to start. But I didn't expect Josh Allen to throw under 100 yards. If you would have told me Josh Allen 7 completions, only under 100 yards, I would have told you the Cowboys won by maybe 25.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bills won 31-10. So, and the 10 was a late score 10. It's not even like it was a true 10. Dominated that game front to back. James Cook, I like the element that he's really added to the offense, especially since they've got their new offensive coordinator. They've really looked to run the ball. It's shown to be more balanced. And it will be a shame if this Bills team does miss the playoffs because you could almost argue that this is one of the most cohesive Bills teams we've seen. Like that year, they obviously lost to the Chiefs. They were firing on all cylinders, and they just ran into a Chiefs team who ran into a little bit more time. But other than that year, this is the best.
Unlucky.
This is the most cohesive, I would say. Yeah. They are very unlucky. But right now, I'd say this is the most cohesive that the Bills have looked to me, just because they truly, as we just saw, they can win in more than one way. James Cook's a legitimate running back. Latavius Murray down in the red zone. They can go underneath if they need to with Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. Got a burner in Shakir. Gabe Davis as a big play guy, and then obviously you got Stephon Diggs. So they've got every aspect to it. It's just, can they get into the playoffs if they dig themselves too big of a hole?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to tiebreakers. I mean, the one thing that they needed this weekend,
and they have none of them,
that did not happen was the Bengals losing. Had the Bengals lost, that would have done a lot for the Bills' chances. They're still going to have a great shot at it. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to, if they're not going to win out, they're going to win all but that Dolphins game. That would be the one in question. Looks like that'll still matter to the Dolphins. So, I mean, I'll just say right here, I do think the Bills are going to win out. That may be for the division. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, the Bills are going to have a real shot at the division. They're going to beat the Chargers this week in Easton Stick. And then what? They got Pats and Dolphins after that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Pats is coming up after that.
I mean, the Dolphins could lose out.
Dolphins have a tough schedule.
The Dolphins have the
Cowboys,
the
Ravens,
Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills.
It's tough. It's going to be super tough for them. So don't count the Bills out. This is why I've been so heavy on the Bills, really. I mean, I just thought they suffered injuries and they had bad losses, yes, but they didn't seem like a train wreck to me. They didn't seem like the Jags where you're like, it literally is like you're either going to get the best game out of them or the worst game out of them. I always thought the Bills were playing well during the year. Maybe that Broncos game aside, that was a pretty ugly game, but I don't know. I mean, I just never really lost confidence in this team, and it's not a team I want to root for necessarily, but the eye test, I mean, between that Dolphins game very early on in the season, coming off the 70-3 win or 70-30 win, and they take them and hold them to what, 20 points, I believe? I think it was 48-20 they win.
Yep.
That was one of the more impressive wins of the season to me. And then, they beat the Chiefs, which they kind of held on to that one. That one, that could have gone either way. But the Eagles, they more than deserved to win that Eagles game. And I was not worried about them coming into this Cowboys game. I did not expect this. I mean, if you would have told me they won by 10, sure. But winning 31-10, and Josh Allen's not really a factor, and you're running the ball down their throats. But the defense was what stuck out to me the most. I mean, their defense was just outright physical, dominated the game, gave Dak problems, gave the whole Cowboys offense problems. It's just going to be something to watch down the stretch here. I mean, like you said, they got a pretty easy schedule before that Dolphins game. Who knows with the Pats, since they lost that game earlier, but I'm going to guess they come away with a victory there, especially since it's at home. Yeah, they're gonna have something to say, and I'm not at all surprised by it. I'm surprised by the result yesterday and how they won again. Like, that was, you never would have expected a run heavy and just a shutdown defensive performance from them. Like, the defense especially, that's what really shocked me. And again, wish that was a better game. We thought that one, along with the Ravens and Jags, would have been great. But I mean, at least this one had real action in it. The Ravens and Jags just seemed like a slog fest outside of Lamar's highlights. You know what I mean? But this was at least, I would say this for Cowboys fans. That's a perfect one to just come in and clown the Cowboys on. I'm still not really worried about the Cowboys after that. I feel the same way about that loss the way I did about the Eagles losing to the Niners. Like, it was kind of due. Again, I didn't think they were going to get smacked like that, but, every dog has its day. The Cowboys, the detractors are going to be louder than they need to be because it's the Cowboys. You know how that is. We clown the Cowboys a fair share on here, but I'm truly not.
I mean, you saw our group chat a little bit, our fantasy football group chat.
Yeah. I mean, Cowboys fans, they're going to be on red alert. That's how it is. And shouts to Ira.
Unintended. Shout out to Ira.
Ira was at the game, and he spent his hard-earned money on the game, and unfortunately, it did not go his way at all. After the first quarter how it's going to go, but surprisingly, I really didn't take away that game like, oh, Dallas is frauds. I really do think the Bills are that good. Again, surprising how it ended up that way, but no, the Bills are good, as good as the Cowboys, I believe. It's just a matter of how the Cowboys close, too. I mean, it just seems like they're going to be locked into the 5 anyway. But I'll say this early. So, Cowboys versus Bucks, if that's the matchup, it's not an easy one for the Cowboys going to Tampa. I mean, it won't be last year's Tampa Bay Bucks. I'll say that.
No. That team was trending downward last year. They backed their way in. This team's starting to trend upward. Baker's playing some of his best football since really the first 4 weeks of the season now. So, and that team seems to be coming together as well as any NFC South team can come together. Definitely, I hope that they make it. I mean, I've wanted the Falcons because I do like some of their skill position players, but the best game is going to come out of Tampa. The Saints are too inconsistent. The Falcons don't have a quarterback. That's actually worth note. And their coaches, And the Bucks actually have been there, done that. So, and they saw the Cowboys last year in the playoffs. So if there's one guy, they're like, okay, let's take from this game last year. They blew us out in our building this year. Let's try to get our get back. So I actually hope it's Tampa, even though I was like rooting for Atlanta just because I do like their skill position players a little more. But favoritism-wise, not as good or anything like that. But the one thing I do want to say about Dallas, that the one thing that's a little concerning is them on the road is not the same team as them at home.
For sure. And
with the loss, they're looking like they're going to be on the road the entire playoffs. And I just don't know. I don't know if you can go to Tampa, then maybe go to Philly, and then go to San Fran, or go to San Fran and then go to Philly. I don't know. I don't think you get through that way. That's going to be really tough. I mean, hopefully you have to go to Detroit and then go to Philly or San Fran. One of them takes out the other, and their hopes Philly takes out San Fran. That's your best way. You can go into Philly and win more comfortably than you can go into San Fran, in my humble opinion. But the fact that they're going to have to go on the road is going to make this is the only thing that really is detrimental about this loss to me. The way they played, every team's had that this year, other than the Niners, really. The Niners are the only team that haven't been like... Actually, the Bengals did kind of beat them like through and through. I was just thinking through all losses. Like, everyone's had like a loss where they've been beat through and through. Mm-hmm. So you don't really take too much. I can't really take too much out of it. As you said, they were they were kind of due, but going into the game, it didn't feel like it felt different than like how you felt going into the game with the Eagles and the 49ers, in the sense of like the Eagles really have just been like holding on by a thread there. It's like their time, they're going to lose. Like you felt confident in that. This one, you were like, I think Buffalo's going to win, but if Dallas did win, it wouldn't shock me. But the loss here makes sense, even though I feel as if Dallas isn't. If they play this game 5 more times in a row, I think they'd be split 3-2. It wouldn't be just like a Buffalo wins all 5.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this to your road comment. I mean, if Dak is quality enough for league MVP, he should be able to at least, put up a fight for that, right? He should be able to at least
100%.
not get blown out in that. At least if Eli can do it twice and somehow beating an undefeated team along the way, I mean, come on, Dak should be able to do it. But granted, I mean, Eagles, yeah, Flacco. Did he have any? Were those all road games, Flacco? I think they had a home game.
I think
no, because they had a home game.
I think they had a home game.
They did. They had a home game. In the
I think they had a home game, but he did have to go on the road into tough environments and beat
the Broncos and the Pats. Right? That was the year they beat the Pats at home because Talib got injured.
I believe. Yeah.
So no, he got two. He got the two toughest. He had the two toughest environments to play in the AFC. During that era, and then went and beat the Niners in the Dome. I can't remember who they played in the first round, but I remember they had. I mean, that was Ray Lewis's last home game. That much I remember. But
yeah,
hey, I mean, the Cowboys. It's par for the course. They're gonna get it from all the fans today, as they should. But I mean, they were due. But you would like for after a game where they beat the Eagles and they're really sticking their chest out, you'd like for them to at least compete. That didn't happen, but I do think they're going to be okay in the long term. I thought they were going to get the 5 seed, win or lose, but hey, we'll continue to see with this Cowboys team and everyone else, because they still got the Dolphins. They still got a couple tough games, but
just real quick, just because we had mentioned it, I want to say it, and we might even talk about this guy here in just a moment. Joe Flacco did go to Peyton Manning in one, outplayed Peyton Manning, then went to Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game and won, outplaying Tom Brady. So, that's a tough time. That's a tough road. You going at the 2 greatest quarterbacks of their generation back to back, and then going to play a 49ers team that was really talented and really good.
Yeah, it was a great team. Joey Flacco, he earned his keep.
Oh, and they beat Andy Luck in the first round too. They beat the Colts.
Wow.
So
that's a run.
They hosted the Colts, and those are 3 best quarterbacks in the AFC at that time.
Arguably,
that's
best quarterbacks. That was still like Andrew Luck's second year, maybe second or third year.
I think it's like a second, third. Hold on, that was.
I mean, you could have said Flacco was the third best
Actually, no, you're right. That was 3 of your 6 best, I'll say at that point.
For sure.
That was actually rookie year Andrew Luck. So, that was 3 of your 6 best quarterbacks. One of your best up and coming.
That was his rookie year.
Going to be. Yep, they went 11-5, made the playoffs.
2012, damn. That's crazy.
Yep.
That was, again, very fun era of the NFL. Next game, though, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about go Chiefs, Pats? We could go Bears, Browns. Let's do Chiefs Pats, actually.
Let's go Chiefs Pats. I'm going to be quick on this one for me personally, but let's go Chiefs Pats. Why not?
Pats put up a fight in that game. They put up a huge fight. Bailey Zappi was kind of going toe-to-toe with Mahomes for a little bit, and then the second half he decided to throw a pass directly to the Chiefs defense when there was 3 people who could have intercepted it easily. So the Pats still lose, which, to some Pats fans, that's amazing news for. I thought it was still a good game. It told me a lot about the Chiefs, really. It told me more what I thought about this Patriots defense, at least, which it's elite. It's been number 1 since week 10. They held up that stat during the game, which is pretty arbitrary. But overall, I mean, it's been elite. It's been elite. They gave Mahomes a ton of trouble. Mahomes still can't seem to find rhythm with this team. I mean, with the turnovers that Zappi had, I think, that first one, if it wasn't a pick 6, they got it right down to the 2. You know what I mean? So other than that, if he wasn't in plus territory, the Pats really gave him problems. And Belichick always has good game plans against them. But, man, if you're a Chiefs fan, yeah, it's a 10-point victory. But that was really more like a 3-point victory. Because, again, that pick six, or if it was close to a pick six, I mean, that was a gift, really. I mean, it got you right down to the end zone. And the Patriots were in that game the entire way. So I don't want to say worried about the Chiefs because, I'm kind of hoping they lose. I wouldn't want to see this team in the Super Bowl. They're not as fun as teams in years past of the Chiefs. So it just reinforced more of what I already knew, which is this is not the same Chiefs team. They're ripe to be beaten. I don't think they even make it to the AFC Championship game at this point. But what were your thoughts?
So the game went, I thought the Chiefs put up a couple more points than I thought, but the game went as expected. I figured it was going to be a close first half, Chiefs pull away in the second half, just because that seems to be how every single game post-Brady goes. It's Bill Belichick gives them fits. The Chiefs are just more talented than the Patriots. They make plays down the stretch, and we make a key mistake, and that's how the game went. But my biggest takeaway from the game had nothing to do with this year. It had to do with the fact that obviously we know there's a chance Bill Belichick's, and I'm not going to set it in stone because there was reports after that said that's not so fast, that's not a thing. But obviously Tom Keenan did report it, then has his pulse on New England for a while now. Was one of the teams that Bill Belichick possibly could be linked to, like for hearsay, is the Chargers. And if he does see Mahomes twice a year, that's going to be tough for the Chiefs. That was one of the things that I took away from it. Was honestly, I was like, if he sees Mahomes twice a year, that could actually be very tough for the Chiefs. They already struggle with the Chargers as is, just because their matchups and how they can get home. Plus, you have a defensive mastermind like that. That's interesting because the game didn't tell me anything different. It told me that our defense is very good, knew that. It told us that Bailey Zappi is going to make mistakes, cool. Patrick Mahomes and his receiving core can't get on the same track, but they're good enough to find ways to win games. That was pretty much what the game was, and I knew that going in. So that was my main takeaway from the game was Bill Belichick to the AFC West next year. If that does happen, I think that could be problematic for the Chiefs moving forward.
Sure. I mean, look, I mean, I've mentioned this too many times this year, but I mean, truly, like if we even had Andy Dalton this year, you can't tell me that's not a 7-win team with that defense, the way they run the ball. I mean, a lot of it, I really don't want to harp on the Pats too much, but again, not impressed with the OC. I think creativity could go a long way with an offense that lacks explosion. I think there's still ways to move the ball. I will give Zappi that he's moving the ball definitely better than Mac Jones. Like he's able to do that, especially with Hunter Henry. Mm-hmm. He has good cohesion with him, good chemistry with him. So there's stuff to build on with the Pats. It'll be very interesting to see, obviously, where they end up with the draft, who they draft, But I do wish we had a vet backup rather than Bailey Zappi. I mean, it would have been interesting because, I mean, look, the AFC is just wide open. Not saying the Pats would have made any real noise, but, man, they could have at least got to the playoffs with a good Mac Jones or someone else at the helm. But that's whatever. The Chiefs, I mean, look, you mentioned if it's Belichick, that is one he's been constantly linked to this year is the Chargers. But, man, if they get even any sort of able-bodied head coach and, you know, I would assume they go in the offensive direction if they don't, especially if they don't get Belichick. If Belichick's there, you get him, of course, if that trade's available, whatever.
Yeah.
But you would assume they go with an offensive coach after this failed project with Staley. And just that alone, like they should be instant contenders in the AFC West. And, you know, barring a trade or barring the Chiefs immediately getting someone in the draft that's an impact guy, I mean, who knows? Maybe they get a free agent. I don't know. But if this receiving core is largely the same and you've got an aging Kelsey, yeah, the AFC West is going to be there. I mean, we see the Broncos. They're not the greatest team, but they're improving. They gave the Chiefs problems 2 times this year. So, and the Raiders should be better next year, you would think. So the Chiefs got a lot of work to do. They can't just sleep on the AFC West being garbage anymore. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Chargers fuck up the hiring process, but you assume by default they're going to be better next year, going from Staley to whoever. So
Raiders look more competent right now with their coaching staff.
Sure.
Obviously, not take away. You can even take away this game, like the 63-21 crazy game that went on. You can take that away. They've looked even more competent since Josh McDaniels hasn't been there, which isn't shocking to anybody. But
yeah, addition by subtraction. That's exactly
what
it'll be with the Chargers as well.
If we got Josh McDaniels back, I would probably not be a Patriots fan anymore. Sorry, I had to add that in. If for some reason Bill stayed and was like, "Hey, Josh, come back," I probably would I would change teams. I'd pick whatever team I got like the 5th pick. I would change it.
I wouldn't love to see it at. Yeah, no, I mean they don't. That's been the problem, regardless if it was McDaniels, whoever they had last year, and then this year, it's been still that they're trying to run an offense that was suited for Tom Brady, a precision-based offense, which is going to be hard for young quarterbacks, let alone any quarterback, right? So,
yes,
yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm exhausted of the Pats. We'll certainly talk more of them. I do hope Belichick is here to stay. I do think he really does coach one more year, but he's still got it. He can still coach. He could coach me, you, and Tim, and Camden, and Brandon Petty, whoever. He could take this rotating guest list that we have on the Warner Brothas podcast, and we would still hold whoever to under 20 points somehow. Like, he's just that amazing. I don't know what it is. And we mentioned Belichick a lot, but we really do got to give credit to Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick because, I mean, they're the de facto defensive coordinators. But, I mean, he clearly does scheme it up. There's just some things about Belichick, like a man-to-man coverage and the blitzes they scheme up that are staples of him, you know, like he has good stunts on the defensive line that he coaches up. Always love to see that. But Keenan, you just gave a good segue. I know we're going to talk about this weekend's games, but it's why we hated Matt Patricia, even during the Super Bowl runs, even during the most dominant run of the Patriots era. Man, Patricia just was so conservative. And that's one thing that these coaches aren't on the defensive end for the Pats. And I say that to say, who is a defensive coordinator tonight for the Eagles? One Matt Patricia. We don't know why he's calling plays, but he is in fact calling plays. I do not know how he's gotten not only one head coaching job, not only he somehow became an offensive coordinator last year, but for 2 of the elite franchises, he is going to be defensive coordinator. And I don't know if this is just for tonight or if it's down the stretch that he's the defensive coordinator calling plays for them, for the Eagles. But if from this week on, he's calling plays on defense for the Eagles, good luck, Eagles fans. You should be extremely mad. You should be pissed off of what's going to happen the next few weeks for your team because it's about as conservative of defense as you can get.
Fun fact, the Patriots, if the Patriots had just scored 21 points every single game this season, it'd be 7-7. It's crazy to think. So the defense is doing their part. Obviously, there's been a couple games like the Raiders game, we lost 34-0 or got blown out in other aspects, but we would be 7-7 if we were actually scoring 21 points per game, or 21 points in all the games we did not. Fun stuff. But that's segueing into the games and the teams that are, because this AFC is getting more and more wild by the week just because everything matters. And Saturday, NFL was okay games. The first one was good. Second one was eh. Third one was lackluster just because I thought it was going to be closer. But all of them meant a lot. The Broncos losing means a lot. The Steelers losing and the Colts winning, that means a lot for the Colts. The Bengals getting a W. They look like they could sneak into the playoffs possibly. The Texans getting a W. This is Sunday, but the Texans getting a W over the Titans after being down 13-0 is massive, especially without CJ Stroud, because that keeps their playoff hopes alive and well. That keeps their division hopes alive and well. You've got 3 8-6 teams in the AFC South right now. And the Colts and Texans play each other the last week of the season. That could be for the division if the Jags keep spiraling. What did you think of this weekend, and which teams did you feel are again the best spots, or what are your thoughts about the AFC wildcard picture on the weekend?
Well, I mean, that Colts Steelers game was almost an eliminator game. Like, I don't think the Steelers bounce back from that. Especially, I mean, it's Mason Rudolph starting. So Pickett, I thought 2 weeks and Pickett would be back. But Pickett's not going to be back. It's going to be Mason Rudolph. The Steelers aren't making it. And it might be nail in the coffin for Tomlin's winning record streak. So They got them out of there. The
They need to
Broncos.
go 2-1.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Broncos, I think they're still going to have a good chance at it. They got a pretty easy schedule, or favorable schedule, I should say. Texans did themselves a lot of favors with the legend of Case Keenum getting them a win. I did not like when I saw someone tweeted that Case Keenum was starting, I thought it was a joke. Like I thought it was just like people were joking because he was a former Texans quarterback. But no, lo and behold, not only did he start, he led them to an overtime victory, which looked like it was going to be a tie for a little bit, which would have added even more chaos. I was kind of rooting for that. Love me a tie in the NFL, especially at this point in the season. Again, I mean, I kind of mentioned it earlier. At the end of the day, the Bills took the biggest hit. I mean, it wasn't a drastic hit because, again, I think they're going to win out. But had the Bengals just lost for them, that would have been okay. And, the Bengals were in jeopardy of losing that game most of the time. I mean, Nick Mullins did his thing. That defense showed up like I thought it would. Nick Mullins threw the most insane interception I've ever seen when he threw it off the Bengals face mask and it just landed in his hands after. Like, you'd never see that. That was crazy and hilarious at the same time. But this is why I love the NFL, and this is why I love the stretch from Thanksgiving to the end of the season, because there's so many scenarios that go so many different ways. And there's oftentimes you look at the schedule, like the Broncos, like we said, like the Broncos' last three are pretty favorable. And there's time and time again, we'll see someone have a hiccup on the way, a team that you think has more than a shot. And you're like, oh, of course, they got an 80% chance. They got it. And oftentimes, sometimes
the Jags.
The Jags. The Jags and the Dolphins. A couple weeks ago. Jags and Dolphins have a real chance of coughing up their divisions. And, man, I say it every year since it's made the change, but that one game they've added, it truly does, Keenan, feel like 5 games. Like the season just feels so long. The season truly is a marathon, not a sprint. And more than ever, I've always thought it was important. I think I've said this in the past a couple weeks ago. I think now more than ever, now that the season is extended, and of course, eventually it'll get to 18 games, I believe, more than ever is a backup quarterback needed, a competent backup quarterback. That's why the Vikings are still in this without Kirk Cousins. Can you imagine, Keenan, what if Kirk Cousins and Burrow don't get injured? The Vikings almost assuredly would be in the playoff picture, like without all the Vikings 7-7 and all that. The
Vikings would be competing for the division. They can be competing for the division almost close now, but like you would think that they would be competing for the division. Like the Saturday game, it was a great game. Don't get me wrong. They went to overtime. T. Higgins had the beautiful catch in the stretch out, but that was supposed to be Burrow versus Cousins. Then this is Cousins on his best year to start, and then obviously Joe Burrow, who was playing some really good football up until he got injured. So it would have been possibly even better game. We don't know, but regardless, it's interesting. It's very interesting. The Bills.
People might roll their eyes at this, Keenan, but
yeah,
there's a strong case to be made, especially now what we know, given that we're going into Week 16 and this MVP picture hasn't shaken out at all. Mm-hmm. And I know what Kirk Cousins' reputation is, but there's a strong case that Minnesota would not only be a Super Bowl team, but like Kirk Cousins might have even been in pole position for MVP had his stats continued on. Like he was playing lights out football. Like his stats, like you said, they were as good as they'd been. Granted, that was pretty early on, probably Week 6 or Week 7 he got injured. I cannot remember, but
you cannot tell me right now. You cannot tell me right now that Brock Purdy is leading the MVP conversation and that Kirk Cousins wouldn't have had a shot.
Right. I mean, he might have had pole position.
No, you're right. No,
he might have been like, oh no, it's gonna be Kirk Cousins. Like that would have been a wild place to live.
Because maybe instead of 7-7, maybe they're 9-5, and they're competing with the Lions for the division. Because maybe they don't because they lost to the Raiders.
How that defense is playing.
Oh no, they beat the Raiders. They beat the Raiders, right?
The Vikings?
Did they win that 3-0 game, or did they lose that 3-0 game? I don't even know, man. Like that game.
I don't know. I don't remember. I think they won it.
Yes, they did win it. They did win it. Okay, so I'm just looking because I'm going through their schedule right now.
It's safe to say Kirk Cousins gets you more than 3 points in that game. Safe to say they might have won that game 6-0.
Because from that point, they beat the Packers. Then they beat the Falcons. They beat the Saints. You do that with Kirk Cousins. They lost to the Broncos 21-20, and they turned the ball over like crazy in that game. They lost to the Bears 12-10. They turned the ball like crazy over in that game. Those are 2 games they could have won. And then this game against the Bengals, like they could be a 9-10 win team with Kirk Cousins, and he absolutely could be like in MVP like position sitting on it. But we don't know. Obviously, we'd never know what would happen in that case. One thing that I wanted to talk about real quick because we're talking about the AFC picture, the Bills absolutely need the Browns to beat the Texans. Because if the Texans beat the Browns and they're both 9-win teams, and then the Bills are then a 9-win team after I think they win against the Chargers. Spoiler alert, not really. They still wouldn't be ahead of either one of them, so it'd be still very tough for the Bills, like because they have no tiebreakers. So that's what's going to make this really tough for them. So they need a Browns win because the Browns are already a game ahead of them anyways. So like a Browns win gets them kind of solidified into that position, and the Browns are still playing for the division. With the Ravens' tough schedule, like they could lose 2 of 3. The Browns could win out possibly. We never know. They still have like the divisions in their sight.
Bill should at least be hoping for the Cowboys to beat the Dolphins on that day. If they can at least get that, that'll help them immensely because then they can just outright play for the division. Again, assuming they beat the Chargers and the Pats.
They need the Cowboys to win and then the Ravens to win in that game because the Ravens will be playing for the 1 seed, and that will pretty much lock it up. If they beat the 49ers and the Dolphins, they can rest in week 18, which I wouldn't do if I'm them because they lost the playoff game doing that prior. So I would personally play them for a half. I always liked when Bill would play Tom and everybody for a half and then sit them just so they don't get fully out of reps, because missing 3 weeks of football is what really got them against the Titans. They came out rusty in that first half and ran into a Titans team who was getting hot.
Sure. And I mean, ultimately, I think the Bills get in. Like, I really do. I think things will break their way. They just got to win out. And 2 of those games are gimme, and they throttled the Dolphins, who couldn't even take care of Tennessee at home on Monday night. I'm not too worried about that personally. But yeah, no, the Texans, Browns, that's another one that's going to kind of hinge on it, though. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one because it's Browns on the road, and that defense is a little different. CJ Stroud will be back. They obviously have something to play for, so that's a toss-up game. I love these mini playoff games you get down the stretch. Like I can't say it enough. Like, this is the best part of the NFL season. We've got great matchups this coming weekend.
The NFL is always so weird. Like, the schedule makers, I always hate them. Like, in the sense, like, sometimes of like what games they put where, but then like it's like they almost know at the end of the season what these games are going to matter. Like,
well, they did the schedule completely by AI this year.
Well, good job AI then, because a lot of these games, like this week, a lot of these games just like matter. And even if they're not like the greatest of like games per se, they just like Jags going to see the Bucks. That matters. The Cowboys, Dolphins, that matters. Saints, Rams Thursday night, that matters. Steelers and Bengals, Bills, Chargers, just for the Bills' sake, that matters. Even Colts, Falcons, that matters for both teams. Both teams are still trying to fight for a playoff spot. So at least it's all teams trying to play. And it's like, not that they knew that this was going to happen, but it's kind of cool that it did happen as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that the buys lasted up until what? Last
14?
Week, I think?
Yeah, 14.
So usually they were done, I think, by Thanksgiving before. So, yeah, not sure how I feel about it, because I do remember seeing something before the season about AI controlling it. So, I mean, if they factor in the buys too, we're going to get weird buys down the stretch. Not a fan of that, but overall, yeah, I mean, every year the schedule somehow, you could almost do any sort of combination and the schedule's going to work out for you.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel. I don't know if it's always been this way, Keenan, but it seems like it's been this way at least the last 5 years. I don't think it's always been that week 17 or now week 18, always a divisional game. Doesn't seem like.
I think it's always been. At least it's been for a while. Like,
I can say for sure the last 5 or 6 years, but I don't know about before that. If that's the case, I feel like maybe it should always be like week 1 and week 18. Then, if that's the case, that are like
it pretty much. is for the most part.
Because week one,
Like,
you'll have your
you'll have some random ones week one, but you have a lot of division games week one. Like this year, week one, you always get Cowboys, Giants, like Rams, Seahawks, Bills, Jets, Raiders, Broncos. You got like a decent amount of them, Bengals and Browns, but you didn't get all of them, which I don't know why you wouldn't do it all, but like week 18 every year is this all divisional.
Yeah, it is. You know what? Yeah, and the more I think about it, going through it, yeah, every year is like literally every year. Which you know what? That is the way to do it, just because you never know what scenario will be taking place. So the fact that you do have divisional opponents that you know are at least going to give you a game, that does kind of help. So that is genius on that part to keep week 18 that way.
And spoilers for teams, like it's like the Patriots are more apt to play against the Bills, knowing if they can maybe knock the Bills out than just like some random
the Bucks or something like that.
Yeah, like just some random team. So like you get that little incentive of like at least we got our rival out of the playoffs for the season. Like we have something to hang our hats on for the off season, which is why I like that. Quick update: Eagles just scored Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown.
Wow. What's the time in the game?
Hold on. Actually, no, he's down at the half-yard line. It is. I'll let you know in just a second. It's probably 9 minutes left in the first quarter. Actually, 6 minutes and 31 seconds left in the first quarter. Wow. They're reviewing it now. It looks like his knee possibly was down, but I'm not. Actually, no, it wasn't down. They're kicking the extra point. So.
That was a lot of updates in a 20-second period.
Yeah, well, no, because like the way they showed the replay, it looked like his knee was down, but then I realized, and then I guess it wasn't. I thought his knee was down, wasn't down, and we're good. But yeah, 6:31, Eagles up 7-0.
The Hurts.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great angle. That's a great angle. There we go. We got it. So,
I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, no, I wanted to talk Bears-Browns yesterday too. The Hail Mary, like how does Fields look? Do you think like what do you think? If you were a Bears fan, Keenan, what would you want? Because Fields has improved a lot. That's someone I've been tough on since he's debuted. And I thought he played well against the best defense in the league, especially at home. They held the Bears offense to 7 points. Would have been 14. Had that one Hail Mary been completed. That was insane at the end there. What were your thoughts? Flacco didn't look as good as he's been. He made a few beautiful throws, especially down the stretch, but he definitely he looked like old Flacco when he got pressured as expected. So I don't know. What do you think for these two teams down the stretch, especially the Bears?
So I'm going to quickly touch on the Browns aspect just so I can go in more in depth in the Bears. The Browns, I actually think, could possibly make the AFC Championship game this year if things break right for them. I really do. Joe Flacco, you have the second most experienced playoff quarterback in the entire division on your roster. Obviously, him and Mahomes. And then, not that Joe Flacco is in peak Flacco form, but we see he can still give you a game. He can give you throws. He's 39 in January. I really think this Browns team, especially if they can get, we be on the road, which is they're tough because they play better at home, but no team wants to see them at all. Especially if you get an AFC South team week one or the wild card round, they can beat up on any one of those AFC South teams. And then maybe you get to see the Ravens, a division opponent that you know well. Possibly you can get the upset there. But anyway, so the Browns I think are interesting, and I wouldn't count them out to get to the AFC Championship game. I don't know if it's my prediction as of right now, but I think that is still a possibility for them. As to someone like the Steelers who are fighting for playoff contention, I don't think there's a shot. The Bears, on the other hand, which I think is one of the most interesting teams in the league right now just because of their future and what they have for assets. I'm leaning, every week I'm watching more, I'm leaning more and more towards keeping Justin Fields and trading the pick. I'm leaning more and more. Like if you asked me this 6 weeks ago when Tyson Bagent was starting, I would have been like, get trade Fields, get what you can, because for Fields, like hopefully he plays a little bit better. But right now, for what you're seeing with this, you can get a haul. Like, you can get a haul, especially because it's Caleb and like how people feel about him, regardless of how, if you're confident, I'm confident, whatever, how people really feel about Caleb Williams. That's depending on who you are. You could get a stud in like 3 or 4 firsts. Like, I don't know what the package exactly is, but if you can get something crazy like that, maybe you lose a couple more games, but Fields still shows promise. And to me, getting Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair with DJ Moore would be huge. You get 2 studs on the outside. You trade, get your offensive line intact in the offseason with a contract. I don't know who's there offensively, but there's always offensive linemen that are out there. You can get some defensive pieces, plus you have the future to build with. I think that might be the smarter move. I understand Fields is nearing his deal, but he's not going to command top money on the market. So you might be able to get him on a favorable deal, possibly that's not crazy expensive. So I think that might be the better option to go with. But I honestly almost don't know if there's a bad option, which is the tough thing.
That's
just
the
what's
weird
the
thing
right
about
option.
it. That's the weird thing about it. It seems like they're in a good spot either way.
Yeah.
First of all, I agree with you on the Browns completely. Browns can definitely make the AFC Championship game. I hope something breaks for them to where they can get a home playoff game, whether it's some sort of upset in the first round or whatever. I hope they can just find a way, because then their chances increase a lot, because you strictly cannot score on that defense at home. Like, cannot. And I wish Myles Garrett would get more consideration for MVP. Whole different discussion for another day. You've heard us talk about how MVP should be more open to everybody, whatever. And if you want me to turn this back to the Pats, talking about the draft pick, I would love nothing more than for them to get Marvin Harrison Jr. And I don't even care who plays at quarterback. If we got this same defense, I could care less who plays at quarterback. Obviously not Zappe or Jones, but just give me someone competent, because Marvin Harrison Jr. seems like the best overall prospect in the draft. Just overall, he seems like the best player. He seems like he's going to be a surefire Hall of Famer. I don't know if we can say that about Caleb Williams. Obviously, if everything went the right way for Caleb Williams, he could be for sure. But, man, that would just take away the whole weapons talk with the Pats if you went and got the weapon. And then, you can get a quarterback in the second round. Get a quarterback in the second or third round. Maybe trade for a quarterback this season. You never know what might happen, who's unhappy. Who knows? Maybe Fields is available. Maybe we can go get Fields and pair him with Marvin Harrison. I don't know. But
listen, if we can, that's what Timmy and I were actually talking about 2 pods prior to the pod, is if the Patriots traded for Justin Fields and they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., I would be stoked. Obviously I've said for a while that I've wanted Caleb Williams, but I've said him and T. Higgins, because obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. wouldn't be likely if we got one, because we don't have those 2 picks. I watched Marvin Harrison Jr. live. I would love it. I absolutely would love it. He is a game changer. I've been asking for a number 1 receiver for 5 years, and we would get that in Marvin Harrison Jr. Not a complaint from me. Promise you that. Promise you we would not get a complaint here from Marvin Harrison Jr. if we got him.
I read a scouting report on Marvin Harrison Jr. I did him and Caleb Williams and Drake May. And Drake May seems like your typical athletic quarterback who has everything, but like still has some downsides. Like, there's still questions about him. So like a great prospect, but people really don't know how he is as a football player by the sounds of it.
You need to get him in there. I feel like he's someone you need in the right situation.
Right.
Like, as to where like when you got like Peyton Manning, whatever situation it was going to be, he was going to make it the right situation. Like, you just let him develop himself and he'll make it into the right situation. Drake May, I feel, could be really, really good if, when put into, like, gets the same kind of weapons. Like, Joe Burrow came in already with T. Higgins, then his second year really fully healthy. Jamar Chase plus T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Not that he wasn't already going to be really good, but you put him in such a great position where it was like, oh yeah, first year healthy, I can get to the Super Bowl. Like, we're that good already. Like, if you did that with Drake May, not that he's getting to the Super Bowl the first year, I think he could get a lot of, like, yeah, he could do very well. But go on with what you were saying with your draft reports.
Yeah, people were just saying, like, there's just more questions overall about Drake May, is what I took about it. Like, took away from it. we've just seen quarterbacks like that in the past who seem like not necessarily can't miss, but they have a lot of the physical tools, but you don't really know how they're going to be in the locker room per se, or, you know, what kind of leader they are. Caleb Williams, his only weaknesses they really said were his size. He isn't a prototypical quarterback size, being at 6'1". And then same thing, maybe who knows what his leadership's like. You never really know with a quarterback until they're there. But, you know, everything else, just game, just arm talent, everything is there that you want, right? Harrison Jr., the only weakness they had for him was that his routes aren't as sharp as you'd think they'd be, given that he's Marvin Harrison Jr., son of Marvin Harrison Sr., obviously, and just given his physical tools. Like, he's an elite athlete. It doesn't make sense that his routes aren't that sharp. That was literally the only weakness they had for him. Everything else was like, nah, like, so he seems like the absolute best player in the draft. I hope we get him. I'm super interested. Obviously, I'm a Pats fan, like, to see what they do, but I really don't know what they're going to do. You know what I mean? You could tell me either way, they're going to take a quarterback or they're going to take Harrison Jr. Who knows? Maybe Belichick does his all, especially if we keep him, he does his all-time, like, who knows? Maybe he gets like 8 first-round picks somehow out of it. Like, you just never know with Bill Belichick. But I honestly think they would take Harrison Jr. I really do.
So here's what I could see. This would require needing the number 1 pick. If he got the number 1 pick, I absolutely could see Bill trading back to like 3, and he would get a haul for it. He would get a haul for that pick. Maybe
especially if he doesn't plan on taking a QB, that would be the thing to do.
That would, if you're not planning on taking Caleb, which then my half would be like, just take him when you have the opportunity. But then if you were to get, say, like the Cardinals fell back to pick 3, you had the Bears at 2, and they were like, if we get him, we're taking Caleb Williams. They traded Justin Fields, and so you trade up or whatever. And you can get, if you got Kyler, if you can get Kyler for like a deal, and then you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or something cool. Like, if they could get a quarterback who's already semi-even established, even if it was like Matt Stafford, I'm good with it. Because the defense
Joe Flacco.
The deep, honestly, if he looks the way he does, maybe. Because the defense is ready now.
That's what I mean. That's why I don't want to.
I've been saying that, though. The defense has been ready now. Like, it's always been ready. The offense that's the problem.
That's always been my point, is why you can't really waste the years and the time. Because had they just gotten Mac, that's why I won't blame Mac here. Like, his decision making's been bad, but man, if they could have just got a simple offense for him where he was just, I don't know, there's a world where they could have been playing at 2nd and 4 all the time. Their line's not that bad. Their line's not garbage. They could have easily had a condensed version of what their old teams used to be as far as game management and, you know, just, again, not playing at 2nd and 8, 3rd and 8 all the time, being at 2nd and 4 and then 3rd and 2 and, you know, everything being manageable. But that's kind of why I want a more veteran quarterback next year. But who knows? Everything's going to be in question with the head coach, the GM positions, and all of that. And
we'll know more in 3 weeks when we get what pick we have. If we have the 1, the entire playbook of life is open up to us. If we have the 2, most of it's open up to us. If we have the 3, we're probably looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. or him or Bill Belichick doing a cute thing and trading back to like 7, getting a lot of picks, and then drafting Brock Bowers from Georgia.
Why wouldn't Harrison Jr. go ahead of Drake May though? Like, it doesn't even seem like a
quarterback, because Drake May has gotten there's a chance possibly, depending on, well, there's a chance actually, because it depends on who has the 2. So if the Cardinals have the 2, then I think Marvin Harrison could go 2, because they already are like, okay, we're just going to roll with Kyler Murray. Let's go get Kyler Murray, a can't-miss wide receiver. But per se, if, like, somebody else managed to sneak, like the Cardinals got a win down the stretch and then someone else lost, I'm just going to use the Giants because they're the first team that came into my head. Maybe they do, but maybe they also go quarterback because they're in that position. I don't know. It just depends on what team has the 1 in the 2. Like the Bears have the 1 or the 2. The Panthers are not going to win their way out of the top 2 picks. So the Bears have a top 2 pick definitively. From there, it just depends on who has the other one, on what happens. Either Drake May could be taken, or it could be Marvin Harrison Jr. So it just all depends there. I just hope the Patriots have one of the top 2 picks like they do right now, and then we'll be good.
Any updates on the Monday night game before we go?
The Seahawks just punted. Drew Lock is starting at QB, so
Geno didn't start?
Geno did not start.
It looked like he was trending towards starting.
Yeah, it did look like he was trending towards starting.
He was warming up, and they said he was upgraded to like probable, and he did not start.
Nope, he did not trot himself
Jesus.
out. So,
well, I was confident in my pick still because I thought it was going to be Geno versus a sick Jalen Hurts. But if it's Drew Lock versus a sick Jalen Hurts, then it's almost a 50-50 to me. If Jalen Hurts is as sick as they say.
Yeah, he has 2 carries, 16 yards, 5 for 7 for 39, and a touch. He has a rushing touchdown already, so he hasn't looked too sick. He's looked Michael Jordan flu game, so
very
So,
interesting.
Yep, absolutely. There's anything else you wanted to brush upon before we're out of here?
I'm good to go. I am ready to watch this Monday night game. Next time we record, we'll be in person, so cannot wait to do our picks in person. That'll be cool. You can catch us on Live Take at Castro, at Keenan Warner. Catch us debating NFL, NBA, maybe some MLB sometime. I doubt it, though. But catch us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, at the Warner Brothas Podcast. Keenan, I will see you very soon.
Soon.
Cannot wait to record. Cannot wait to have this NBA, NFL-filled holiday weekend. This was the Warner Brothas Podcast. This was Kyle and Keenan. Keenan, see you later. Good talking to you. Hopefully we get a good Monday night football game. Peace, everybody.
Like a man.